Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm newtmechanist, and today we're going to be continuing our game development project. When last we worked on this, we got the basics of the inventory system rolling, at least the internal skeleton of it, but there are some things that we need to revisit to make it work right. Or to proceed into the visual element of it. See, we've got CyberGhosty joining us on the Twitch side. Hello. Welcome. Checking in with the kitties before we dive in any further, we do have Ember across from the keyboard. Mason has joined Sammy over on the bed. And I can see Sky passing through the play area, getting near the litter boxes there. Not sure where Sherbet is, could be any number of places. Oh, okay. He just chased Sky over to the table here. Alright, let's see here. Let's see if we can make some progress here. Okay, so before we get in... Oh, and hello, Oleg. Hello. Welcome. In some testing, in some further testing of... Here, let me show you. I tuned the frames per second down tune the frames per second for physics and for rendering down to 30. And we're getting pretty good results, but I am seeing this problem, which is we're getting index collisions here where we're getting out of sync as far as what is removed and what is not here. And I think part of that problem is that the logic of an entity removing itself can be out of sync with the collision logic. That is, when an entity reports that it is going to be removed, we could still be handling collisions as well. Other collisions. So we might get that same entity again, and that's getting our indices for shapes and the entity collection out of sync. And we can't have that. This collection in the physics server and this collection in entities needs to be perfectly in sync. It is a problem if it's not. So this is going to take priority for our investigations today, since this is a critical bug. Now, one thing we are going to test here. Hello, Sky. Are you gonna... He's got those wide target locking eyes going. Just gonna push this. This. Cleaning some stuff up real quick here while I give Sky some chin scratches. Okay. So one thing I wanted to test is we did a whole lot of optimization as far as doing things like using rendering server directly. We know nodes are expensive. One way that we could try this is to revert back from using this stuff directly and instead use things like animated sprites with corresponding hitboxes and see how that do. So might test that to begin with. This could result in a big refactor if our performance remains good. But let's see how it goes. For those that aren't familiar with the project, we're making a Vampire Survivors style game. So lots of things on screen, lots of monsters and bullets and whatnot. Okay, so let's get our game script and objects out. So we are going to temporarily remove this stuff. Hey there, Levi. Welcome, welcome. Joining us for programming day. How have you been? These. So I'm gonna make a testing entity here that is going to have a collision shape and an animated sprite, just for testing purposes. Animated sprite might be tricky to deal with if we end up doing the refactor, but we'll burn that bridge when we try to cross it. How's the puppy doing in general? Make a testing folder just to keep everything nice and separate for the time being. We do have a nice thing. What's the word? We do have a nice commit that we can revert to if we need to backtrack here. We won't have to just try to delete everything. It can take a moment, especially with a puppy. Puppies are going to be real aggressively sociable, and older cats can they can take a moment before they adjust to that. I'm going to make a new node 2D. I don't really want this to work ultimately. I think we can change this around. We are going to instead... We're going to make this derived from a straight up collision shape. Well, it's good. It's good. Get some mellow kitties. Switch our cameras over here. Hello, Kimberly. Hello. Okay. So I'm making a testing scene here with the intended purpose of... We might just be able to use a sprite and save ourselves some pain where we'll animate it ourselves. But for the purposes of this test. Have a scale of 6. Position is fine. We're doing some programming. Nane. We're making a game. We're using the Godot engine. Okay, we have shape circle, which we should be able to... Yeah, there we go. Let's give it an 8 radius for now. A Vampire Survivors style game. We don't really have an actual title yet. The working title, the project name, is just Nyanite Survivors. We need to have... Just a moment. Gotta step away real quick. Sorry about this. Sorry about that, folks. Getting started in just a moment. Oh, okay. All right. You need to remember how to do animated sprite. Been a bit since we touched this object. Okay. Our 16 by 16. Hello, Ember. Hello. Yeah, we got Mason and Sammy. Ember has come to join us. Hello, Lightning Wolf. And this is our default. It is a looping animation. Okay. Look at this in 2D. Yep, okay. We're making a game. We're making a Vampire Survivors style game. We do have a bit of a critical error in a core system that I'm trying to resolve. It's unfortunate. We have sort of a timing conflict, a bit of a race condition. Hey there, Mafioso. This might be apparent by this error. We have a index out of bounds in a portion of the code where that shouldn't be possible. So we're going to add a bunch of these shapes to the field. We should be able to get away with this. Do our script. We're going to remove the player as well. This should... we're using Godot script, GD script. We could code it in C#, we could, but we're just using this to learn a new language and try something out. Where do we get player? Oh, well, I should have checked the stack there. Okay. Don't think we use... Okay, we are going to temporarily comment you. You will make a copy of you. We're probably going to end up reverting this change quite a bit here. So like I mentioned, in our collision handling logic between things like monsters and bullets, we do have a race condition where two critical elements have fallen out of sync. That absolutely cannot happen for this method. I do have a wide in a tall view lightning. In the tall view, there's a link to the widescreen view. Okay. They're now functional there. So for the rest of the test, we need to add a whole bunch of these. Let's see. is a not defined as a class currently. Well, it's a fun part of the journey since I'm learning a new language and a new platform for coding in. We all get to flounder around together. We could add a script to this. There we go. And we're going to give it a class name. And then in the game is a test shape. Need to add a couple of collision zones. Area 2D, and this is going to have a pair of these. That. This just lets us group them. We are going to make two separate collision zones. We're going to add an entity to each one every time we iterate, just to maximize it. What we can do is iterate over the screen and do like row by column and constantly add more of them so that there is a bit of an overlap. We want to trigger as much collision as possible. Then we are going to have mild entity. Should be able to do that. Screwed. This is not a good way to do it ultimately, but this is test code. So we want every other one. Okay, we're going to add them back and forth, back and forth. And vector 2 I, j, add in. Whoops. Alright, so this should add them across the screen. We want to do a while in this. I don't actually want that many. There's a whole ton of them. So let's divide it up. Yeah, this would result in like 1 million of them, which is too many. Let's do... Jumping all over here. 100 across, 10 down. Yeah. Let's put 1,000 entities on screen. We're going to try that first. Okay, we're not getting any visual aspects to that. Yes. So, two problems is our existing collision system has a race condition in it. Two collections that need to be perfectly in sync have fallen out of sync. And, that's a problem. Okay, well, they're being added, they're just not visible. Which is strange. This is an annoying habit. GDScript can fail to actually remove elements. Oh, that's why. Pretty much. It's fine. Good, okay. So we're testing some of the base Godot objects. We've been using very low-level interactions with Godot. And... see, that shouldn't be a problem because all of the shapes and whatnot should be getting handled in one burst each time there's a physics frame. We should not be able to get those out of sync. But, testing, still. Here, let me show you. Let me revert something real quick. This experiment isn't really going somewhere. Okay. Hello, copper and papyrus. Now, we're inevitably going to get an index out of bounds error. Matter of time. Now, how long it takes us, it will be annoying, but we'll see. We currently have... oh, here we go. So, we have a collision event that has triggered. And we're calling into the local getEntity object. Let me verify, just making sure that our audio is okay. Jawform stream might be a little flaky right now. Usually it's less of a too little information and lag and more of a too much information, and YouTube doesn't like it for some reason. Anyway. So we call into getEntity. So there are some assumptions that are being made in this. Is one, we need to have entities. We're going to ask the physics server what the shape count is. For the purposes of testing, we're going to add a variable in here. It's equal to... It doesn't really hurt to do it this way anyway. Because we're going at steady frames per second. Like, there's no problem with latency right now as far as... oh, we don't want to break there just yet. Like, we're holding just about perfectly at 30 frames a second. Now, it does oscillate there based on the... what's going on at any given time. But we have a whole bunch of collisions happening simultaneously, and I think that's part of our problem. Okay. Area shape count is 84. We are down one entity, but not a shape. And that's part of our problem. Let's add an extra call here. There are entities, and the shape index is within that range. Possibly. Possibly. This is debugging. This is programming. So one possibility is that a collision is being processed when the index has already become invalid. So that collision is a bad collision already. And we need to cull it as a result. So if the entity has already been removed, but the shape hasn't, that's already part of the problem. We are also seeing part of the issue already. We've solved the actual error that is happening, or we've prevented the error. We haven't actually solved it. 2,500 objects will start to lag the game. There's just a lot going on right now. We're losing about 10 frames a second with about 2,500 things and the number of resulting collisions. But those extra mice that are passing through everything should absolutely not be happening. We have a problem. So an entity is being removed without the shape getting removed. Okay, we haven't found it in the collection of things to remove already. Then we add it and we disconnect it. Then check the entity. Should have been reverted, so we're gonna close that and get rid of that. Inside entity, we're gonna be raising this event. Raise the remove signal. Oh, okay. That is in a particular set of interactions. Enemy take damage. It should be able to send remove signal. Going to begin our iframes immediately before sending that signal. We should still be able to get an index out of bounds here, but we're going to make sure that... So you can see the mice are like going away as they impact the blobs. As soon as the mice start passing over waves of blobs, the problem has begun. Like, it's one thing if they wiggle through. Okay, problem has begun. For this to happen, we have not yet removed a shape from the area, but we have removed an entity. How is that happening? So one possibility is that we're getting the entity out of the collection first. Okay, we call remove on it before we call if it's there. This might be leading to the problem. begin the iframes right away just to be sure. We are calling remove on it before we check if it's there. It's possible that it's already been removed, and if we call remove on it while it's a live entity when it's already been reused, then we might cause a new entity to lose its all of its values, and now that would create an out of sync. Is we might call a shape that has been reused. Let it run a little bit, see how it's going. Lasting a lot longer, good sign. You can see a bunch of debug values in the upper left there. Okay, there was our problem. Okay, here I can show you. Remove entity previously, it called remove on it. Before it checked to see if it was in the collection. That's dangerous because entities get reused. In order to avoid the cost of garbage collection in entity initialization, we don't just get rid of them. We put them in a queue to reuse them again. So, if we call remove on it, it should check to see if it's alive first. But if it's been reused, it's alive again. And all it takes is things lining up at just the right moment, where the entity got reused, but there is still a collision on the stack for it. That is what I think is happening. Okay, so we have solved that. I still want to keep the iframes in here for the collision object. Index out of bounds means, well, okay, so you have a bucket that contains 10 things, and each of those things is numbered, like 1 through 10. If you ask the system to give you the 11th thing, that's index out of bounds. There is no 11th thing. And it's similar with, that's pretty much how you deal with it with like arrays and whatnot. Though instead of saying give me the, a thing, you're saying give me the thing numbered 11. Give me the thing that's in the slot marked 11. In higher level languages like this, there is some buffer. There's protection for that, so we're getting an error instead of more subtle problems. Hey there, Francois. Like if you were dealing with this in like C++, index out of bounds isn't intrinsic. There are some protections that are enabled, but it's possible dealing with an array that when you ask for the 11th bucket, and there's only 10 buckets, then you could get the data that is adjacent to the 10th bucket kind of stuff. But that's not a bucket. That could be anything. Okay. We're getting there. We do a quick code check in commit here. doing some source control commits just so we don't lose anything in case we have to revert. There we go. Back in we go. I'm trying to make more commits to the source control during the stream so that if something goes completely wrong, I have more points that I can leap back to and fix things. Hello, Sky. Hey. Sky is a relatively chatty cat. If you talk to him, he'll talk back. Okay. So let's get in here and start adding some more HUD. For one... check this, see if we can add some visibility. Well, that threw off our font size, but it's not the worst thing. Let's see if we can increase that. Hey, White Wolf. Oh, that's way too big. It's big. There we go. That'll do. Let's increase the size of that outline. Not quite what I would want, but it's much more legible this way. It's a Vampire Survivor style game, a Bullet Heaven style game, which is you move around the area, you get weapons, you upgrade those weapons, and you try not to be touched by the enemies. We are still very much in the early development stage, pre-alpha kind of development. So everything you're seeing is largely testing. I am making some of the art assets that I intend to use, like the player character, the default player character in the center. I'll be using that blob sprite for something. The wind-up mouse is a weapon that will exist. But most of the rest of the stuff is testing stuff. Yeah. Okay. So we need an element on the screen. We're working on core systems, so like the collision stuff that I'm doing is largely homebrewed. We're using low-level systems instead of the high-level stuff that Godot has baked into it. If I weren't trying to deal with like 2,000 entities at once, then, if I was only dealing with, say, several hundred things on the screen at once, then I could probably get away with using default systems. But since 750 enemies on screen is what I need to be able to handle, since it's plausible that the screen would be mostly full of enemies. So, if you can see the number in the upper left, the bigger number, that's the number of blobs that exist, little bouncing blue things. The number to the right of it is the number of little wind-up mice that exist. The E number below it is the total number of entities that have been created. So they might get deleted or reused, but if we ever create one, it increments that number. So these blobs are relatively expensive. You see, if you can see how they don't walk over each other, there's extra logic going on that makes them kind of jiggle around and try not to stand on top of each other. So this is essentially in the actual game. In actual gameplay, this would almost certainly be a failure case. Like, you would lose very quickly in this scenario. But it's good for testing because we get all of these very expensive blobs on screen. We're emitting a whole bunch of mouse objects on screen at once. We move far enough, we'll start to get to the edge of the blobs. You can see how they're sparser in the upper left there. That's because as we move, things that fall far enough off the screen to the right and down go away. They get removed because there's no chance that they'll really catch up. The blobs are actually limited to around 2,000. You can get a couple more. But this is a big part of why we need it to be super efficient and precise, is there are so many things active and so much going on. Each of the blobs currently can take 2 hits from a mouse. A mouse can hit 2 things before it goes away. And as the mouse is moving over blobs, even if they are not accepting hits at the time, even if iframes are triggered, those collisions still need to be processed. If we were using regular objects, we could dodge that, but we can't really dodge it for the way things work here. But yeah. Okay, so we need a HUD element here. So here's a canvas that we're using for the debug menu. Subresource child node, we need a canvas layer. This is, I'm just going to call it inventory. Well, no, we need a canvas layer first. Guy wants attention, so he's grabbing at the mouse. Okay. Spoken languages, I only know one. I have programmed in... I mean, there's some wiggle there. JavaScript and HTML and CSS are technically coding languages these days. But let's lump all of that into one. Then let's see, primarily C++, Java, C#, a little bit of various scripting languages, web development. A little bit of a lot of things. And ultimately, it's less of programming languages you know as far as programming languages you can currently work in. or are working in, because it's a lot. They're a lot more exercising of them as opposed to knowing them in a spoken sense. Okay, so we get inventory. So we need to be able to have an element inside each one, and that element needs to be variable. Let's check our player inventory global here. We are going to start with just the movement objects. So we're going to have the 5 movement objects and the entity on there for our testing purposes. So 6 columns. We might need to fiddle with this a little bit more, but so when it's presented, we need to populate it with what we currently have. Then we need to be able to interact with the individual cells that are in there. Focus, size change. I don't know that these are really what we want. Get to it in a moment. Gonna step away and be right back. And we're back. Sorry, had to top up the water here. We want some elements that we can click on. And we want to be able to drag them into particular regions of the screen. So there's a grid element on the screen, but so this is a canvas layer, so it exists outside of the context of the game world. Hey there, Sapphire. You have arrived just in time to be right after a water refill here. I don't think grid container is what we actually want. It's ultimately just a control that we've got. Let's try some stuff, shall we? We'll give it a texture here. There's a squishmallow on it, a little gray dinosaur squishmallow. It is a highly favored spot. Am I? Let me check some stuff here. Always fun when you find something of value. We're going to add a different child node here. Let's do this. We look at its transform. I'm going to set its scale to 6. anchor to bottom like that. We're just trying to get any sort of visual element in place here. Oh wow, we crashed. One moment, please. And yes, half pint, giant squishmallow. It's been procured as a dedicated cat bed. I should really consider getting another one. It's not core. I think it's, yeah, main menu. Okay, we have button controls. All right, all right. So then if we go back to our game screen, yeah, okay. We're probably going to use this 9-patch rectangle here as part of it. Texture rectangle will probably be part of it as well. Don't think the item list will work because we need to be able to select interior things. So then in the texture rectangle, we're going to add our little purple ball. Five. 60 by 108. Okay, there's our little ball object there. Oops. Oh, hello, Sky. Yes, I'm sorry. And we need to change its anchor here. Okay, so we have left to right going on, but I don't necessarily want that. We need a way to put them in the cells. We're getting the right general size of them. It's weird that it's anchoring them that way. Like, why it's going past the bottom of the screen isn't clear. Hello there, fan. Hello. Welcome. Okay, I think it's that it's hanging off the bottom of the screen is the problem. When we anchor it like that. So, yeah, that should actually be correct. The 8. It's like the scale of transformation isn't right here. And hello, other fan. Node events, we do have GUI interactions, mouse enter and exits, texture rectangles, draw methods. I don't think our grid container is going to work for this, though. Selection. We have the possibility of empty, but I think it's rows. Yeah. Yeah, this is just columns. Not really what we want. Hey there, Wizzy. Haven't seen you in a bit. How you doing? Not really a graph. Kitties are doing pretty well, Wizzy. This is a good opportunity for a kitty check. As for what's going on, folks, right now, what we're trying to do is get it so that I can have an inventory grid. This might end up being a look it up off stream, but I hope not. Let's see. Sky is on my lap. Ember is across from the keyboard. Mason and Sammy are sleeping. Yeah, which means the only unaccounted for cat is Sherbet. We don't want them sorted. We don't want them laying out that way. We want them to be in fixed locales on the grid. This might require manual layout. I kind of hope not. It'd be great to be able to fix them within the window, you know? Let's move these all to be children. Scale of 6, everything has a scale of 6. The item box isn't what I want at all. Not yet, Lunar. Not yet. We're trying to add the inventory system, the drag and drop manipulation. I am hoping to have some more control over it, but I'm seeing that a lot of the default GUI is not great for what we want. Like there are elements that we can use. Like, you'd think grid would work for this, but grid is probably not going to work for this. Hello, Destroyer. So I need to be able to have blanks. The inventory needs to be able to have blank slots. Would love not to do this manually. We are doing well. We are doing well. Because right now, no matter how many things are added, it just fills them in the grid. It's not what we want. So what we might be faced with is manual manipulation of the different elements here, that we need to be able to create one, add it in, show it, and manipulate it accordingly. So I potentially have to maneuver these around manually. Just sad. Sad that we can't have a container that lets us socket things in. In, you know, a grid. That'd be pretty useful. If do a vertical box, and inside of that vertical box So I'm trying with default stuff first. I have already built several things from the ground up, and the fewer things that I have to do that with, the better. That, and then these. The nodes on this. We don't want to pre-sort. Like we still want to be able to determine which ones they show up in. And it's not looking like the box containers will give us input events for interactions with them. So what we want to be able to do is drag these around. Like in the game, we want to be able to click on it and say, like, I clicked on that one and dragged it and it moved wherever. Afternoon, Loki. Afternoon. I think we might end up having to. Of our disabled focus. Click, it's pressed, it's toggled. Yeah, for what we're working with, Loki, we have to have a functional grid, essentially a series of rows, and each one of those rows, will amount to an array. A slot can have nothing in it, but a slot can have something in it. We have to have that to make this coherent. So we can't just have like a vertical list kind of thing. We also need to be able to interact with them as straightforward as possible. And I'm getting the impression that we're going to have our own layout. Because I'm also just not seeing some of the events that we're going to need to have in order to make this functional. Texture rectangle has practically no events attached to it. So we need, for a given element, we need to know when the button was clicked. So we know when I began clicking it, and we know when I stopped clicking it. We could then translate that to a point on the screen to say which part did you drag it to. If you dragged it to a spot, there we go. Ideally, we would also have some sort of ghost image, but we'll see. Hello, Kobe. item list, where is it? Don't want to arrange them is the problem. Thank you, Kobe. Thank you. It's in a container, was it? This item list. So we can have columns. We can have, each item can have a series of columns, but those columns themselves I don't think are as controlled. Now we could have item clicked as an event here, but we then also need to have the ability to drag around. Columns might be what we want here. Texture button. Take that texture button. We're going to drop. Let's make that bigger. We got to scale it. Where's our transform? So we have the item itself. We have a column. But this is just a text thing. You could have... You just want a texture 2D. All right. Two of them. Okay. List item itself is internally managed. So we're not just dropping things on it. That is to say, the individual interactions are not what we're tracking. We can have empty columns here. I'm sorry, empty rows. But we would have to interact with it ourselves. We need to we would then need to also have like a click release. Sherbet's on my chair rest. So ultimately think that list item is not where we can be for this yet. What if we just have a series of buttons and we control them? Sherbet definitely wants attention. Hey, buddy. Sherbet is similar coloration to Mason up there. Sherbet's request for attention is to get up on my chair rest and drop behind my neck. So, he's getting back scratches. This just displays the texture. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is going to be manual. Even if it's manual, we could kind of brute force it. In that it's an item list. Container. We look at a grid container. And we give it our number of columns that we want. So then we could have some control over it, but let's start with an interactable here. Don't really want a button, but I think enter GUI, enter to exited does not have click style interactions. In theory, focus could be a thing, but that's not a click. Again, worst case, we're going to handle this ourselves. It will require some further research. So I hope we don't have to go down that road. So we have button up, down. We have toggled. Then it can have text. It can have an icon again. I just... There we go. Rid of you. Duplicate that. Let's scale it out and anchor this to the center for now. We are making a game in Godot, Dot. able to set the anchor of the positioning would be good. I don't want the default selection logic in there either. The scaling is pretty big here. So there's logic in it for what it appears to look like when it's selected. You'd think it would be in focus, but not a toggle button. Should be a type for that somewhere, but I'm not seeing it. So these are all of the different states that it can have. But I don't want any of this that it's showing. I don't seem to be able to alter any of this. All right, be back in just a moment. We'll continue. We have returned. Alright. Our grid container, we are going to clear that theme stuff out. To the button. For those just joining us, we are making a game. We're currently trying to work on getting an inventory grid visible. I am attempting to not have to custom build it. That is the goal here. But we have a lot of assumptions that are in place in it that I do not prefer. There are things like focused highlighting and what have you that seem to be intrinsic to some of these things. That's a start. A scale of 6 on this, and we will keep those because it gives us some sort of interaction. Let's check our transform here. Layout. No. Transform. There we are. Convert that down. We want it to be a fixed position on the screen. These are right, they just have a lot of margins and whatnot that we don't need. Okay, there's a start. We need to make them flat buttons. We're learning as we go. We're learning as we go. We need to interact with the button as soon as you begin clicking it. We'll probably need that as well. We might be able to get away with the on release, but we'll see. We need layout behavior here as far as things like margins and what have you. Hopefully they won't hit anything important. You could see some shadows flickering on the bed there for a moment. That's 2 of the 3 that aren't visible flying all over the place. Zoom in a bit. Huh? Interesting. Okay, that's adjacent, so if we just put -7 here, that's a good start. So if we... So, a thing that we can do is I could go in and I could populate all of these buttons and then dynamically update what they contain in them, like which icon it is. And by dynamically allocating them, each one of them is a known grid cell. We could extend that button and have its identifier. That is a possibility. Not a great one, but it is. Then if we check our events here, we would have to have an inherited button, and we'd need logic for auto-populating it. I would not manually load all of that in. That'd be kind of a mess. Here. Columns it has. Custom drawing this element might be better, but at that point we also need to have a way to detect drag and drop, like when I click, when I move, when I release it. Because if we have that canvas element, we could fill the screen with it and we could control where on the screen the thing appears and draw the elements manually that way. Then we also have the ability to iterate when we draw, is that if it needs to be updated, it can update. We'd probably just update it constantly as per usual. Okay. So we're setting aside the idea of a basic container entirely. We need an object that has all of the events that we want on it. Focus, we have the mouse is over it. input event. We would need to be able to track whether an event happened outside of it as well. None of the node events matter, none of the object events matter. Canvas items, draw, and similar don't really matter at the moment. We could leverage this to do our rendering pretty much just like we're doing the rendering in the individual entities in the collision zones accordingly. We would need a series of states. We could do things akin to what we're doing with the grid, and that's by knowing where on the screen they have clicked and dragged and similar, we can get those. But the canvas layer itself doesn't have any of the clicks. Control by itself doesn't have that either. Doesn't need to be an actual button or anything. It actually helps us if it's not. We could just have global input checking on things like the mouse. To determine that if the inventory is open, the inventory would be checking input events. Ready doesn't have any intrinsic properties for that. Okay, player movement has some of the input checking. Hello again, Kobe. You did mention that. Thank you again. This is other logic that I want to change. We need to get away from the idea that movement is targeting an existing entity, or that when we have an entity target that it is an actual entity object. This should be a position. This should be the vector. We could have the position in the vector of the entity that we're adjusting, and that we can keep passing it along accordingly. But we'll need to adjust this because this is a circular dependency. Movement depends on entity, and entity depends on movement to finish its definition. But anyway, whenever this movement happens, we're checking for what our current input is. We could be doing that constantly with this kind of inventory structure. So if it's a texture button, it has a lot of the properties that we would want. Because we could instantiate the objects as texture buttons. That would save us to having to render the textures manually, which is good. But I don't know that it's ultimately going to save us a lot of work. On a lot of these other fronts, because there are presumptions made about the button. We don't have a physics process happening on the inventory here. And we add a node 2D to this. Hey there, Lane. Lane, we finished that game yesterday. We finished the Still Wakes the Deep yesterday. We had physics on it. We could just call a physics tick on it. Okay, it doesn't need a physics check. Add collision zone. Should have some sort of tick function. Physics tick, okay. Float. All right. So input singleton. cause... We'll get it. Now, we could check this and say, okay, if they clicked, we enter click and drag mode. And then we can check here, is action just released? So this exits the drag mode and we try to resolve it. You could say we'll know that you clicked. So we check if it's clicked and we begin the handling. If it wasn't clicked, then we're not going to begin handling. If we get that a release happened, we then subsequently handle the release logic. He's here. Oh. Do we have the possibility of input here? Aventurious indeed. Mason and Sammy are snoozing. Not a lot happening on screen. We are trying to do some user interface coding. It is going slowly. Oh, hey, Sherbet's sitting in the play area box. Have Ember across from the keyboard, Mason and Sammy on the bed, and then Sherbet in the play area. Yeah. Thank you, Aventurious. Okay, we get all kinds of input events. We can consume the event with viewport set input is handled with this. Okay, that won't work for our player input. We've always got to keep checking for player input. So if we look in our move player, one moment, checking something. Okay. Well, we do. What do we do? We don't want to do this because we're looking for what happened in that moment. So this event is an input event. So we want to have this as an input event. Block there. You can even do things like pen and touch input kind of stuff. Okay, so we can check for like a left click where. We're going to need let's if event dot this is a specific type of event we're getting though. Input event mouse motion is one of the types that we can get. So we need to consider more about the input method. So we get an input event. Clearly this is a little out of date because we can get some additional types here. input event from window, input event with modifiers. We don't care about with modifiers. We're going to ignore pretty much everything there. Button mask is a mouse button mask type. We care most about 1. So if we see 1, okay, so what we're going to do is a little bit brute forcey here. Oops, mouse event as an input event. We're going to try to force cast it. Yeah. Don't know that that's true. So we need an action for is action pressed. We could check there. But I'd like to be able to go through this. Help us then, since we don't know. We want to be able to get particular events. I don't think we have the equivalent of a is a. I think I may have found it. We might have to deploy that later. Excellent. Okay, if I get a click, then I can say input mouse button to event. See that dot? We don't care about the meta markers. If it's pressed, we enter the pressed mode. If it's not pressed, we will release pressed mode. If it's mouse movement, we could keep track of where the mouse is, but I think we can query where the mouse is. Button mask, button index. Okay, so mouse input event is going to be in generally pairs. We'll have the button and then the release of the button. Yeah, so we have true on that, and then if I go back, I don't have a true, but I can left click again. So if I leave the window and I don't give it that event, then it won't know. That's okay. It can stick to the mouse for now. We can have right-click cancel the behavior too. Yeah. So if I right-click, it's 2. And we can check. We could interact with these, I believe. Yeah, we could use mouse button constants. So it's mouse button left, mouse button right. Dorothy, we're working on a game. We're working on a inventory GUI for our Bullet Heaven game here. A game in the style of things like Vampire Survivors. We are trying to blend in some Noita-style weapon modification and customization. And we have the back end of that more or less working. Now we want to get the front end to start testing the kind of the feel of the interaction. So we could get left and right clicks. Then get a mouse position. It can be. Mobiles. And the mouse's current cursor position in screen coordinates. Indeed, Clowny, that is 2 of my cats visible at the moment. The upper one is Mason, the lower one is Sherbet. Not Sherbet, Sammy. I don't know if we can still see Sherbet. Let's check. Yeah, Sherbet is still napping in the box in the play area there. Ember is across from the keyboard. Sky is not visible right now. I wonder where he is. But yeah, 4 out of 5 visible right now. Been tempted to add... There are some tools that I could add to my streaming software that might let me try to track the cats. There'd be some footwork that would have to happen to make all of that functional, but, you know, maybe. We could get mouse position from the display server. So let's try that. Let's get position, okay. Okay, if we hit the edge of the screen, it won't work. Algerin, hello, welcome, welcome. We're working on some user interface development for our game here. I think... And hello, Colin. I think, if I am speaking as if I'm sorry, if I'm speaking to somebody you can't see in chat, it's in one of the other 2 chats. Okay. So we're going to get... We need to get the user interface grid, and we need to draw... So this is where we can draw the objects for the interface here. Should be able to have some sort of RID thing. Thank you, Dorothy. I do like my cats. Get canvas. Okay. You can use get canvas to get the RID for the canvas. We will need that. Okay. This could be an ant on ready, equal to get canvas. put a pause here. And our canvas RID. Okay, good. We'll need that. All right, we're going to be going for about another half hour. So if you're heading out, if you want to swing back, it'll be by then. I fully expect we're going to end right about normal today, just because I do have more reading to do to verify I'm not about to do this the hardest way possible. We have the canvas marker here. Go to a collision zone. When we are doing our process on that, we'll call entity draw. We're going to do most of this again, without any of the animation, the facing, anything like that. So we'll iterate over the possible positions and we'll move across them accordingly. We don't need to modulate. In fact, we could draw in 2 layers. My normal streaming days are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We're trying to weave some gaming in again. It's been Tuesdays and Fridays if we do it. Otherwise, we try to make progress on this game here that we're writing. Yesterday, we played Still Wakes the Deep. It was a horror game, a very cosmic horror game, with a strong body horror element woven in as well. It was good times. We managed to get a full playthrough in. So we could clear the whole canvas whenever we draw here. And then we can place the corresponding texture rectangles onto it. We have our existing texture. We have a rectangle within the texture. We are making a Bullet Heaven style game. So here. That is, you fire projectiles out like crazy, and you try to stop the monsters from getting to you. We are still very firmly in the testing stage. Yeah, we're able to hold right about 30 frames per second. Yeah, a fully new not for broadcast would be pretty good. I know they've had some extra content for that. Haven't revisited it yet, though. That might be a good one to double check on. I thought they added some new stuff. But it'd have to be tangible. Okay. We need to have the draw then. We're going to start with drawing a rectangle to it. Well, we'll start with just drawing something arbitrary. Ready. Texture 2D. Equal to preload. We won't actually do this way, but again, ta-da! Well, hopefully you will get that opportunity at some point there, Aldrin. Hello, Sky. Hello, bud. Okay, so then we go into entity in our draw. We're going to do this. Mostly. I acknowledge you. I do. I do. That it's going to pitch a fit. This is positioning that it's going to draw at. Well, I appreciate the sub. Zero here. This is where the rectangle on the texture is. Position and size of the rectangle. Position and how big we want it to be. Okay. All right. Okay. So position on the texture is 0, 0 with 16 as its size. Then we will clear the frame first. Didn't like that. It did not like that. Frame offset its size. Ah, okay. We have 2 points. So we're gonna have a vector 2, 0 and that. Okay, we'll start there. Okay, so that's on the surface, that's where we're drawing it. And then here, it's going to be the same thing, I think. Does it make sense? We have a canvas RID. We have the texture. Okay, something's not right with how this is functioning. So this is the entity itself, its specific canvas item. And when the entity is initialized, it's our parent RID. It's the physics server. This is where we create a custom canvas item. We're not creating one, so we shouldn't have to set parent again. And we already have the menu. It's tricky. It's tricky. Got that. And then in the draw method, we clear it by its RID. We're just going to repeatedly draw our texture here. Now, we're still getting whatever this error is. So it should be rendering it in the upper left-hand corner. It's visible. We don't want to remake these things constantly. don't really have to, because we can move this GUI up to the inventory global and give the inventory global a scene of its own, because it will only show itself when relevant. If we, let's just make sure. Okay, all of our interactions with the rendering server are going haywire here. I wonder if we're not actually getting a canvas identifier here. So let's look at our entity pool. Would be in spawner, actually. Initializing the spawner. We're going to call our get canvas item off of our area 2D. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I think the RID is different here. So we have get canvas. But it's not a canvas item. Okay, we need an RID of a canvas item. So I think we need to create one during this process. So at the moment, we're creating one from the canvas pool. I think we can use the canvas pool. don't think we actually need to on-ready this since it's a preload. Make one. Then we need to parent it. Welcome back, G-Man. Here we reveal this. We do canvas item RID. Okay. So this allows us to place the thing wherever we want on the screen. So we have a way of figuring out, okay, what would the offset be? Okay. This is the rectangle on the texture. This is which one we're drawing, and this is where we're drawing the rectangle. So in theory, we could do 960 by 540. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. Right. Let's see. It's a factor of 6, so 320, 60, half that to 160, 80. Yeah. Right about middle of the screen. Awkward, but possible. We'll have to adjust that. We'll have to adjust that. In the entity somewhere, we should have a scaling factor that we're applying when we draw it. This is where we transform the shape, right? No, this is where we set its transform. And the transform, that's if we rotate it. We're never going to rotate it. We are going to, we're going to scale it based on whether scaling has to have a multiplier for rotation or for flipping the sprite. Okay, so We're going to need to know where we put it on the screen. We're going to need to know... So let's take this block right here. We don't rotate to face. Go. Okay, so then we would need to calculate a position for all of those. Yeah. So we can adjust where they go in here. So first we clear it, then we draw to it, then we can move the whole thing. So this scales it, moves it, scales it, repositions it, then applies the scale and reposition. So we can iterate over this a few times. So we should get 3 of them next to each other now. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So the general idea is that we would position it somewhere like over top of the whole screen or similar. So we fill in the rectangle with some sort of shape. We may draw one of these boxes over top of it. We could have a 9-patch rectangle here. We would need to set up the texture for like how this texture is supposed to work. And set it up, but the 9-patch rectangle would let us have like borders and whatnot. Alternately, we can just set up a known sprite for it. Like I could have a fixed sprite. I kind of don't like that. Instead, what we're gonna have is to create known rectangles for it, like a way for us to mathematically say this is where a square is. Have a buffer zone around it so that we can say if you release the button on the screen at this point, we know precisely where it landed. So we know which one you clicked on. When you're dragging the mouse while it's clicked, we can draw an additional like ghost image that you're holding potentially fade the one you clicked as well. And then when it's released, we calculate whether it's just going to undo what you did, or if it will drop into place and potentially swap something around, other logic like that. Okay, we have made headway. But I do need to do some research tonight and tomorrow morning to verify if there's a better way we could be going about this inventory grid. In the meantime, I hope you all had a good time watching us flounder around with some GUI coding and Godot today. Hopefully it'll be better next time. But if you liked what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It does help support the channel. Tomorrow we're going to be doing more coding, and then hopefully I will get the schedule for the coming week up in a timely fashion after that. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, I hope you have a good rest of your day, folks. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.